trains I missed, the loves I lost, the bridges I burned, the rivers I never crossed. Here's to the call I didn't hear.
Growing up in a deaf community was normal to me. I mean, my parents loved me like any hearing parents love their children, and they only wanted the best for me. The only thing was communication was a little frustrating sometimes, and I wish they could hear and understand what I was saying. I learned sign language, and we learned to communicate that way. To the deaf community, I was always referred to as bicultural or bilingual, as I know two languages, English and sign language. I could see the conflict with my parents on how to communicate with me. They made it clear that they did not want to pressure me to be their interpreter and wanted me to live like a normal hearing child. They did their best to communicate with me with the best English they could. However, when I would communicate back, they wouldn't understand me very well. So that's when I had to really learn sign language as my second language. In the deaf culture, American Sign Language is considered their native tongue. I think the most important thing to know about the deaf community is that they do not consider deafness as a disability, but instead they are a cultural minority. They share the same language, which is American Sign Language, and just like any other culture, they have values and history. The deaf culture is not a denial, but rather an affirmation. They are proud of who they are, and they don't want to change. Some people in the community take pity on those who can't hear, and but people who are deaf take pride in it. The community supports each other and advocates for each other, and sometimes they feel isolated when they're submerged fully into a hearing world. So the deaf community really helps them to feel a part of something. There are a few resources in Calgary that I know of that my family have drawn upon. One is the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services. They provide various supports and programs, not just to deaf people, but also to businesses, organizations, government, and just the Calgary community. They offer programs like interpreting services, sign language courses, deaf services, hard of hearing seminars and education, hearing loss prevention, student literacy, and counseling services for families and those in the community. So when Angela was born, the doctors came in to tell my parents the bad news that she had not passed the hearing exam. But my parents were deaf themselves and were proud of it, so they weren't disappointed. But they faced a difficult choice when asked by the doctors if they wanted Angela to have cochlear implants. The doctor outlined the critical time period for a child to learn the spoken language, and it roughly happens around the age of 3. And although most people in the society would not agree or understand my parents' decision, they declined the proposed medical advice. So my parents were against cochlear implants because they believed that Angela would be just as happy with or without hearing. I can't imagine my life without my sister being deaf, so it's hard to know. At the same time, my parents knew that this would create a disconnect between me and Angela, but they didn't realize the extent of this. In that moment when my sister was left hearing impaired, I became the odd one out. My sister and parents may have been seen by the community as the ones with the disability, but really in my family, I'm the one with the disability. School wasn't very accommodating for Angela. I remember teachers didn't really understand how to communicate with her and had to struggle to explain simple things. None of the teachers really knew sign language, which kind of made Angela feel like an outcast. The alphabets and numbers were really difficult for her to learn, and the teachers really focused on group learning. which didn't help her needs. So the activities revolved around talking and listening in songs and playing games, and there was a major disconnection between her and her classmates. The other kids in the school wanted to play games like tag, which involves counting without looking, and Angela felt left out with these games and became more attached to deaf culture and didn't really involve herself in school anymore. I just remember when it was time for me to go to school that a new program had come out for children who were deaf or hard of hearing. The Deaf and Hard of Hearing program was offered by the Calgary Board of Education for children like Angela who needed help learning English, but not through being immersed in a hearing world. It was available in Queen Elizabeth School, so that's where Angela moved. The new program, DHH, used American Sign Language and total communication to meet learning needs. It was really small classes, only 12 students, and there was a specialized teacher as well as a support staff member. The ratio was really good for Angela's learning, and I think she actually really started to learn from this program. After that, she seemed like she was more into studying and learning, and we were able to text each other, and she felt a part of something in that school. So the other nice thing about this program was that it was organized by learning level, not age. So the class was pretty much accepting and diverse, which made it really good for her. Angela and I have a great relationship. Growing up together wasn't always the easiest with communication, but I figured out American Sign Language and we had our own way of talking to one another. So being able to communicate was very important to our parents, and we are constantly encouraged to be patient with each other. After I learned to sign, our childhood and now adolescence is pretty much like any other siblings. We do all the things typical sisters do. We talk about clothes and movies, and we bicker. But overall, I think we have to pay closer attention to one another. So it really brought us closer. So right now my relationship couldn't be better with my parents, but when I was younger I always kind of felt ignored. It was because I was the odd one out. I was the only one who spoke English really well, and so I did learn to speak American Sign Language, and I don't know, we always kind of used it as a game. After learning the basic alphabet, I found it fun, almost like playing charades, so that's how we made it out to be. The fact that my parents created such a positive atmosphere growing up really helped me mature. Really, at this point, I wouldn't change the way I grew up for the world. I definitely think that growing up in a family with deaf people helped me gain patience, responsibility, and tolerance. And now it drives my passion to help people and become involved in helping people communicate with each other.